Quick question. What is the point of Prime Minister's questions when the Prime Minister never answers any questions? Today, we have a rattled Keir Starmer, ruthlessly destroyed over immigration, with his past and lies revealed. We will watch and react, whilst also going over all of the latest news from the last 24 hours. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel and join our fast-growing community. Just a quick one to say we have new Make Britain Great, again t-shirts available on our store. Go grab them now. They are available at britishstand.com or check the link in the description. So, have a watch of this.
Mr. Speaker, last week the Prime Minister didn't seem to want to talk about appointing fraudsters to his cabinet. In fact, he seemed to want to talk about immigration. So let's talk about immigration. He has relaunched yet again. Many new targets, 6 milestones, 5 missions. But why was cutting immigration not a priority?
Speaker, I'm glad she now wants to talk about immigration. Last week she said she didn't, and for good reason. Because the previous government presided over record high levels of immigration. The figures just a few weeks ago, nearly 1 million on net migration. That is unprecedented. A one-nation experiment in open borders under the last government. And she was the champion. She stood up and praised the then Tory Home Secretary for listening to her on removing caps on migration visas. So she was applauding it. Now she's furious about what she was campaigning for. We will drive it down. We will drive down lawful migration. We'll drive down illegal migration.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about open borders. He was the one campaigning for free movement. I was in this House asking for a lift on skilled migration. He was there supporting all of the people who should not have been in this country. He wanted us to relax immigration. But as he's so keen to talk about the past, let's look at his record. 4 years ago, the Prime Minister signed a letter demanding that foreign criminals be allowed to stay in Britain. Dozens of Labour and Liberal Democrat MPs repeatedly signed these letters insisting that rapists and murderers be allowed to stay here. One of those criminals, Ernesto Elliott, had 17 convictions, including for knife crime. After his deportation was blocked, Elliott went on to murder someone. He was able to stay here and murder because people like this man campaigned against deporting criminals. Will he apologise for signing these letters?
Mr. Speaker, I'd firstly remind her that when we're in the number now, under their watch, of migrants coming to this country, nearly 1 million, is over 4 times the number when we're in the EU. They lost control of the borders. And the particular example she puts to me is an example of failure under her government to take the necessary measures to keep our country safe.
Mr. Speaker, this is a ludicrous assertion. He is the one who was repeatedly signing letters. He even asked us to pause all deportations. He doesn't want to talk about his past, Mr. Speaker, but that letter is just the tip of the iceberg. There is more. The Prime Minister actually complained that the immigration system was working to deter migrants rather than provide support. He said, and I quote, that he was proud to have served as Jeremy's shadow immigration minister. He boasted that he took the last Labour government to court for cutting benefits for asylum seekers. He said he would never set a target-based approach to immigration. He wants to talk about immigration. Let's talk about his record. We can talk about it all day. I have committed... Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister says he wants to talk about immigration. I have committed to a cap on migration. Why won't he?
Mr. Speaker, she talks about my record. For 5 years, I was the chief prosecutor, prosecuting people who went to prison, many of whom were then deported. So while she's talking, I was actually doing the hard yards of convicting those that should be in prison. And she presided over record numbers of asylum seekers in this country, a record number of lawful and irregular migrants. That is 14 years when they lost control of the borders. They set a cap for each of those 14 years. It wasn't hard. It didn't stop people coming, and it got a record number. They should apologise for what they've done with their open borders policy.
Mr. Speaker, he did not answer a single...
Do you want to leave? If you've not got the guts to stand up to the comments, you shouldn't be in here. Let me beg up.
Mr. Speaker, he did not answer a single question. He never answers questions. He wants to talk about the past. The fact is, we've acknowledged where things went wrong. He will never take responsibility. He will never take responsibility. The fact is, he has scrapped a deterrent that the National Crime Agency has said we need. Since he came into government and scrapped the Rwanda deterrent, small boat arrivals have increased by nearly 20%. His own MPs are complaining about having to house asylum seekers. So can the Prime Minister tell the House how much more his government will spend on hotel accommodation because he scrapped the deterrent?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I'd invite her to tell us what went wrong under the last government, but it'd take us all afternoon. Mr. Speaker, we are going to smash the gangs that are running this bile trade. We signed a landmark agreement with Germany this week.
Order. Mr. Philp, you've been very loud. I think now we're going to have a little bit of silence from you, Prime Minister.
This week we signed a landmark agreement with Germany. She should be welcoming that, because that will make sure we have the powers to take enforcement action across the continent where it is needed. We've set up the Border Security Command. We've committed £75 million on top of the existing £75 million. We're extending the powers so they're counter-terrorism-like powers. We've retained 9,400 people who shouldn't be here. A record flight got off. They talk about getting the flights off. They did it for years. They didn't succeed. We got the flights off.
Mr. Speaker, he says he wants to smash the gangs. The only thing he's smashed is his own reputation. The fact is, what he has been agreeing is not going to do anything. The cost of the Iraq agreement is £500,000. That wouldn't even buy a house in his constituency. Many of the things he's taking credit for are our agreements. Let's talk about what he put in his manifesto. The Prime Minister promised to end asylum hotels. He promised, he's the Prime Minister now, he promised, but in Altrincham and Peterborough, his government is expanding the use of asylum hotels because he unilaterally disarmed the deterrent. In fact, Mr. Speaker, a man who arrived by small boat told Sky News he was happy Labour were in power. That man said the Conservatives, and I quote, wanted to deport us, but Labour are making the procedure easier for us.
What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. In other news, Chancellor Rachel Reeves is set to cash in an additional £6 billion annually for the Treasury by implementing planned increases to the state pension age, according to a new report published today. The findings, released by the Institute for Fiscal Studies, IFS, and pension provider ABRDN, reveal the substantial financial impact of raising the state pension age from 66 to 67 between 2026 and 2028. This hike has been introduced by successive governments and is based on projected rises in life expectancy. However, this latest report highlights concerns about poverty rates among certain groups of pensioners, prompting calls for targeted support measures. The IFS study suggests the Labour government would need to allocate nearly £800 million a year to counteract the worst effects of state pension poverty. The IFS report found that while poverty rates among over 65s are generally lower than working-age populations, certain groups face higher risks of financial hardship. Private renters are particularly vulnerable, with this demographic showing a concerning upward trend. Only 4% of those born in the 1940s were private renters in their mid-50s, compared to 10% of those born in the 1960s. According to the think tank's researchers, there is specific concern about the growing number of pensioners who rent rather than own their homes. This trend is expected to continue, potentially leading to increased poverty rates among future retirees. The report suggests that targeted state support could help mitigate these challenges for vulnerable groups approaching retirement age. As part of its findings, the IFS outlines two potential support measures to help those affected by pension age increases. Its first proposal would provide additional support to those 1 year below state pension age who receive universal credit. This measure would cost approximately £600 million annually, representing 1/10 of the savings generated by raising the pension age. It could help reduce poverty in around 30,000 households. A second, more targeted approach would focus on those receiving both universal credit and health-related benefits. This alternative would cost roughly £200 million per year, but would only assist approximately 3,000 households in escaping poverty. The IFS noted that while broader support for low-income individuals could further reduce poverty levels, such measures would carry higher costs and potentially impact employment rates negatively. The IFS has proposed allowing pensioners to claim housing benefit for an additional room as another support measure. This would enable single pensioners and couples to receive support based on two-bedroom homes in their local area, costing around £150 million annually. If implemented, this policy idea would accommodate visits from children and grandchildren, recognising that older people in the UK often spend significant time at home alone. Heidi Karjalainen, a senior research economist at IFS and an author of the report, broke down why Reeves and future chancellors need to address issues surrounding retirement as soon as possible. She explained, "Increasing the state pension age is a key policy to help the long-run sustainability of the public finances in the face of people living longer at older ages. But it does hit those on low incomes who are already not in paid work before the current state pension age particularly hard. Failing to support the most harmed groups risks undermining public confidence in the system and, in particular, the desirability of increases in the state pension age. There is a good case for using some of the savings resulting from a higher state pension age for targeted enhancements to working age benefits for the most adversely affected groups in the run-up to state pension age." Mubin Haq, CEO of ABRDN Financial Fairness Trust, added, "Levels of poverty amongst private renter pensioners are 3 times the rate amongst owner-occupiers, with the number living in the private rented sector set to rise significantly. Hardship is also high amongst social renters. However, the situation for private renter pensioners is particularly worrying. Not only are rents higher, and there is less security of tenure, but state support with housing costs for those on low incomes often fails to meet actual costs or needs, and it doesn't tackle the low availability of one-bedroom properties. Increasing housing benefit to allow for a second bedroom would better meet the real cost of private renting and provide much-needed space for carers and family to support older people with their increasing health needs." What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.